Hello, Meoni here. With thanks to Square Enix for allowing me to play the game early with a free review copy of this game, I'm playing Forspoken on the PlayStation 5. I can assuredly say then that Forspoken, in my opinion, is undoubtedly one of the most interesting action games I've played in quite some time. Joining our main character Frey Holland as she is literally taken unwittingly from her home in New York City in our world and flung into a fantasy much like Alice in Wonderland. I was treated to spectacular visuals, honestly a typically amazing soundtrack for a Square Enix game that we've taken for granted up to this point, an interesting story, and some of the most fun I've had with traversal and combat in an action game in at least the last couple of years. I can't and certainly don't want to talk about the storyline despite what people want and beyond what the demo of the game revealed, so I'll leave that for people to enjoy themselves. I'm more interested in conveying to you what the experience was like of playing this early and of course, what I thought of it. The starting zones of the game, of which all of this footage is taken from, I don't want to spoil any of the later areas for obvious reasons, are diverse and complex in their construction. Large, impassable, rocky outcroppings cordon off treasure chests and other collectibles displayed on your map. So much of this side content then is absolutely filling the map to its brim, and they're quite a challenge to get to, let alone actually take part in, with varying difficulty and varying different activities within, be that labyrinths underneath the ground, or defeat X amount of enemies within a time limit, or so on and so forth. That is until you advance your character. Suddenly you realize that putting attribute points into this quite sleek, I might say, menu will allow you to actually jump further, move quicker, and combine other movement-based abilities that I'm not showing here. And this is the difference between this attribute skill tree and other games. Ultimately, everything you decide in here will actually change the way that you play, and that's a really, really good thing. And this impacts on combat as well, based on how much movement is involved in the combat itself. Ultimately, it makes revisiting locations on the map something encouraged as you progress. So usually you find somewhere that's impassable, you go, oh, I didn't realize that was actually up there, and then you go, all right, okay, well, I'll revisit this later. This map is absolutely huge. As we zoom out slightly here, as you can see, it's a fairly good zoom out. Obviously, this fog of war will deter me from actually truly showing this full scale, but thankfully things like belfries and rest stops and other locations like cities actually act as fast travel points if you want to get from one part of the map to the other, no problem. Realistically though, in the 12 or so hours that I've played the game so far, in the early stages before its release, I found that it was way too much fun to use Frey's free running abilities to get to where I wanted to go instead. Lots can be learnt then, I think, for future developers of games that include free running. This, I think, is how it should be. When it works and you time your jumps perfectly, it looks spectacular, and it's reminiscent of something like Spider-Man, freely swinging and bouncing across landscapes between rocks. Yeah, it's really helped as well by the power of the PlayStation 5, and I presume the PC version will be no different or even better, right, because I don't have access to that. I had no stuttering at all throughout the PlayStation 5 playthrough, even when I was in the absolute heart of intense combat or the craziest of parkour adventures, something that would ordinarily ruin fun in other titles that didn't actually show up in this game, which was really nice. The combat is as fluid as you actually make it. Learning all of the button combinations takes a fair amount of time, and thankfully, unlike the demo, which actually dropped you into the middle of the game basically with the abilities they gave you, they actually drop spells and upgrades on you over time, methodically, and this teaches you with heads-up displays and helpful video footage on the actual skill page, showing exactly what each of these buttons does. You can even now rebind these keys as you see fit, so if you don't want to hold down this trigger button and then press this button and then press that one, you can change the way things are lit around. This is even on PlayStation, and I presume the PC will be the same, but to have this functionality on a PlayStation is really, really cool. I really don't understand why more people, more developers don't actually do this and allow you to rebind buttons in a lot of other games. It would make so much more sense, and I think this is the future. We can't go back. Sometimes you feel like an absolute god in combat, pressing dodge rolls or blinking just at the right time to propel Frey in any of those particular directions you choose, following up mid-animation, mid-air with some of my abilities to fling rocks at the enemy and then slide to safety, charging the next barrage of abilities and so on. It made some encounters, clearly way above my pay grade in terms of levels I found on the open world, known in the game as mutants, incredibly fun to take on. These are optional enemies that have amassed so much corruption in the storyline that they're able to, at least if you encounter them early enough, one-shot you on the normal difficulty, which is what I chose to play the game on. But the combat is so enjoyable. I fell in love with the challenges and felt intensely accomplished after beating the crazy bear thing or tiger thing and whatever the monsters that the game threw at me. There was such a good range of different monsters that they chose from. Something I personally love though is how you can make abilities even more powerful by not only ranking them up through the skill tree, but you can also enhance them by setting yourself challenges to do in the open world. Much like in the demo, then you can access these buck things at rest stops and choose a spell. Then this will apply a challenge to you, like a quest. This usually includes defeat X amount of things with this ability, or do this and then that ability. This means that whilst you're flying around and flinging yourself across mountains, you actively want to kick the teeth in of pretty much everything you see. Horde of undead people? Oh boy, time to use my AoE skills and see how many life bars I can explode at once on screen. It's addictive, fast-paced, repetitive, tactile combat. And honestly, I love it. It's something that doesn't bore me. It's not something I go, oh no, there's another like 50 enemies. Whatever will I do? Can I skip them? It's, I want to go and crack their skulls, see what Frey says, see what Cuff says as a little quip, and also get lots of challenges complete and become even more powerful. And I really like that about this. And if you like that about other games that have that kind of element, you're going to be in your element doing that. So let's get to the accessibility options, because I've talked about fast-paced combat, but what ways are there of making it so more people can get in touch with that? And Forspoken offers a wide array of accessibility options, from just color accessibility options, as you would see here, but beyond that it also has gameplay and control options to make it pretty much playable by anyone. There's a lot of emphasis on making it more accessible to as many people as possible, and I think that's wonderful, especially when you think about how many people usually can't play a game like this. You know, fast-paced reactions and stuff aren't everyone's forte, and I love the fact you can change that. You can also limit the amount of time that you would need to press the jump button and traversal keys during free running, making it simply just a case of it will do that for you if you hold down the circle button rather than tapping it or timing it or holding it, which is really nice to see. There are settings for how much damage you take and how often you have to heal and so on, so you can tailor your experience and difficulty however you see fit. You can set everything to the maximum and then even make it even more difficult with these options. This is really great and opens up the game to so many more people and challenge runs, and to people who just don't normally have the same, accessibility that other people do. And I think that's truly what gaming is all about. And I think they've nailed it on the head here. I've never seen as many options as I have in this game. One of my favorite functionalities though, which definitely feels more like a quality of life thing than just an accessibility option, you can make it so it automatically gathers stuff that you walk past. Why I would want to go and click the button every single time with these blades of grass is another question, but having the ability to AoE gather, oh my goodness, turn that on, thank me later. I think we can safely then talk about the dialogue and voice acting without any real spoilers here. With the footage I can show you of a much less important section of side stuff not related to the main storyline, so let's just briefly talk about this. So Ella Balinska, which is the voice actor for Frey, and Jonathan Cake here, the voice of the cuff around Frey's wrist, are honestly, in my opinion, a match made in heaven. Now, some people have taken to the internet and said they don't like the voice acting, they don't like this dialogue. There is actually a setting of turning down the amount of interactions they have with each other to nearly none, or you can even turn it even further up. So if you want to have lots more quips and reactions, you can tailor that. So people complaining about that, please go into your settings and change that to lower if that's how you feel about it.
Huh? What the? I'm floating.
I suppose it must be something to do with how heavy the brake is here.
Huh. No way. This place is so weird.
Yes, I'm sure it's intensely amusing. Now, shall we be on our way?
However, talking about the dialogue itself, even in the storyline, despite some of those recent reactions from a general public, I don't really personally see any of the issues that they have. The range of emotions displayed in the time I played so far from Frey as a character are no less realistic than I would have myself if I had been thrown into a magical world. It's very strange and weird. Frey feels like she is both scared but also elated at the idea of not being present in her previous circumstances, of which I don't want to talk about. There is a context for this. She is excited to be, escaping into this reality, and the powers she is given, I think, actually free her and allow her to develop her personality. And that's how I see it. And I think you need to play the game to actually get the context for some of the scenes that have been uploaded to the internet, because Frey's character is deliberately this way. Out of context, I'm sure it sounds really strange, but wouldn't that be the same with any game? I don't know. Forspoken for me then is at least a well-crafted game that feels like it benefited from feedback during the demo sequences that they uploaded, with button mapping added at request of fans, locked on enemies that move off screen remaining locked on for longer, text size improvements, and a ton of technical polishing based on reactions. The public demo was probably the best thing that they could have done, even though I think that the demo isn't that good at representing what the game itself feels like. And yeah, honestly, they needed to do it, but at the same time they could have done a slightly better job, I think, of conveying the game in the demo. But it is what it is, right? The game itself is like 10 times more enjoyable than the demo. I've seen far too many games come out that expect people to, deal with the problems on offer and address the problems later in patches. And personally, I feel very impressed with the communication and dedication that Square Enix have actually displayed here with this title. And I really hope they continue to offer this quality of assurance going onwards, because it really is. It's quite refreshing, to be honest with you. I would recommend this game wholeheartedly to those of you who fancy a compelling free-jumping action RPG with lots of layers of polish, and clearly this appears to be a passion project. It might have got some fairly interesting press, but I can assure you and definitely say that I will want to continue, and I do want to finish this game, probably on multiple difficulties. It's just that addictive. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. That's my sort of 2 cents on what I thought about the game. Hopefully that helped. Of course, this is a slightly biased review because, I've been given it for free, but take everything with a pinch of salt, These are my honest opinions, and yeah, they are my own. So enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully this was helpful. Like I say, enjoy Forspoken. I know I will, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.